Welcome everyone to our Modern Day Mystery School, Book Study 24, for real this time because last week I got ahead of myself. I did. If you have any questions or comments or thoughts or insights, please leave them here because Eddie will be here with us. He's going to be on this side of the screen this summer. And this is a big week for Eddie. He's going to be just tomorrow. He's going to be on the New Thinking Aloud podcast with Amy Vadnais. That's Monday, tomorrow, and Love Covered Life with host Melissa Denise on Wednesday and Thursday of next week, the 3rd and 4th of May. Please check him out on YouTube and wherever you find your podcasts. We continue through in Volume 2 of Unfolding Consciousness, Exploring the Living Universe and the Intelligent Powers in Nature and Humans. That's you. Written, compiled, completely explained in brave depth by Dr. Eddie Villamoria. Volume 2 is Peering Down the Microscope, Man's Internal Landscapes, Looking Within the Human Being. And we are continuing Death is Transition, Time at the Door of Eternity. We're on page 73 in Volume 2. Our yellow post-it study notes for this week are: Only Spirit, the upper triad is conscious after death in Devachan. Werner Heisenberg's near-death insight. Bertrand Russell's reported post-mortem clarity, and does consciousness die in the brain? And the more spiritual seeds are sown during life, the greater the spiritual harvest. I love that. Let's repeat it. The more spiritual seeds are sown during life, the greater the spiritual harvest. Remember, you get 20% off the 4-volume set with the exclusive UC Book Study code. That's a discount code, UC Book Study. Type it in at the Shepard Walwyn website. And it's only available in hardback right now. This mammoth text, over 1,300 pages. There are ebooks being formatted as we speak, condensed versions, study guides, and audio version is in the works. And if you're new here, we've been doing these for the last few months, and a new one comes out every Sunday, no matter who shows up. So definitely go back and revisit. It's worth it. This is a very valuable text. I try to keep each book study under 20 minutes, so let's get started. What is conscious in Devachan? The personality or lower self being the mortal part of man, and the animal soul, or the psyche related to it, is neither divine, nor immortal, nor eternal. So, the personality, or lower self, being the mortal part of man, and the animal soul, or the psyche related to it, is not divine. Let's look over here. You have the lower triad. You see it over here. And you see the Sthula Sharira, which is the physical body. You have the Linga Sharira, or the astral body, the etheric double, and Prana, the life force that activates matter into life, the life force. Those drop away. You can see in the second column here, dying and just after, you have loss of this lower triad. Triad, the 3, go away. Postmortem in Kamaloka, the place of desires, remember? You have the life review and sleep, the second death. The butterfly emerges from the chrysalis. So that is on page 66. And we're revisiting that really quick before we pick up again. This is confirmed in the Zohar, a foundational text for the Kabbalah, consisting of the esoteric methods and disciplines of the school of Jewish mystical thought. Volume 2 of the Zohar contains esoteric commentaries on the book of Genesis. In it we find this key passage. The soul, when sent to this earth, puts on an earthly garment, our bodies, to preserve herself here. So she receives above a shining garment in order to be able to look without injury into the mirror, whose light proceeds from the Lord of light. Let's read it again. Love that. The soul, when sent to this earth, puts on an earthly garment to preserve herself here. So she receives above a shining garment in order to be able to look without injury into the mirror, whose light proceeds from the Lord of light. Furthermore, the Zohar teaches that the soul cannot reach the abode of bliss unless she has received the holy kiss, or the reunion of the soul with the substance from which she emanated, spirit. Here again is further confirmation of the esoteric doctrine that alone, which is permanently joined by Atma Buddhi. Let's take a look at that table again. So when I say Atma Buddhi, looking at the top there, man is a 7-fold being. There are 7 principles of man. At the very top, the unending, the eternal, you see Atma, the divine self, and Buddhi, the intuition principle or the vehicle of Atma, they call it that. And you have the higher mind, higher manas, mind, manas, that's where we get man, manas, mind. In view of this, that which is conscious in Devachan is the spark of consciousness that preserves in this spiritual ego Buddhi and the higher manas, the idea of the personal I, the witness, the watcher of the last incarnation, which lasts as a separate, distinct recollection only throughout the Devashanic period, and after which time it is added to the pool of innumerable incarnations of the reincarnating ego. We're going to pop over to this table now. So we have the higher manas. So you see the higher manas, the middle one here. Take a look at that. Higher, inner, or reincarnating ego. The immortal I am I. And then next here you see the principles, manas, and that's designated manas, meaning higher and lower mind. And then moving over the mind principle, this is comprises the mind principle, independent of Buddhi, becoming the spiritual ego only when merged with Buddhi. And after death state, it is divine essence survives if left unsoiled. And that table is from page 46. Immortality is one unbroken stream of consciousness. Hence, the personal consciousness can hardly be expected to last longer than the personality itself in this physical life. And such consciousness survives only throughout Devashan, after which it is reabsorbed, first in the individual and then in the universal consciousness. So I think we should repeat that. Listen. Immortality is one unbroken stream of consciousness. Hence, the personal consciousness can hardly be expected to last longer than the personality itself. And such consciousness survives only throughout Devashan, after which it is reabsorbed first in the individual and then in the universal consciousness. For earthly existence, man consists of a trinity of the upper triad, the middle duad, and the lower triad. Again, we're going to pop over to the tables. Here we go, page 66. So for earthly existence, man consists of a trinity of the upper triad, you see that explained here, Atma Buddhi Manas, the middle duad, which is the higher and lower mind and the desire principle, and the lower triad, which is prana, the life force, what activates matter, what makes life here on earth, the linga sharira, which is the astral body or etheric double, and then the stula sharira, which is the physical body. So, for earthly existence, man consists of a trinity of the upper triad, the middle duad, and the lower triad. For example, spirit, soul, body. Unless his degeneration is such to have caused a divorce from spirit, which Eddie gets into more shortly. Woe to the soul which prefers to her divine husband, spirit, the earthly wedlock with her terrestrial body. From a text of the Book of the Keys, a Hermetic work on the density of the soul. When this fateful condition happens, nothing will remain of that personality to be recorded on the imperishable tablets of the higher ego's memory. However, as repeatedly stressed, soul, in the generic sense of the term, displays a dual characteristic. And while the soul is feminine, the spirit is masculine. This has nothing, absolutely nothing to do with gender. So this is worthy of repeating. Soul, in the generic sense of the term, displays a dual characteristic. And while the soul is feminine, the spirit is masculine. Again, nothing to do with the genders that we associate with our physical bodies. Soul can be seen as feminine in the sense that she is the life principle proceeding from the one, filling all of creation with the animating breath of spirit. And spirit, again, in the generic sense, can be seen as masculine in the sense of being a fixed principle from which all else proceeds. It may therefore be helpful to the reader or the viewer to regard these less as feminine and masculine, where there are inevitable connotations of gender, and move to a more contrary and complementary principle, or forces of yin and yang. That's easier. An argument can legitimately be raised that since Devashan has been likened to a dream state, though magnified 100-fold, what intrinsic value is there in a dream? After all, in daily life, objective reality is given far more credence over subjective states like dreaming. In fact, it is quite the opposite. The waking state, which is so valued in our predominantly materialistic culture, is also a dream of sorts, a maya, or illusory appearance. This fact was acutely presented to the mind of the great Nobel physicist Werner Heisenberg, who sounded the principle of indeterminacy, which means undetermined or inconclusive. Heisenberg's dying words to his student bear repeating in the context of this chapter because of how important they are. So listen. says, "It's very easy. I did not know this before. I see now that physics is of no importance and that the world is an illusion." When the shadow of death became his tutor, Heisenberg was able to see real facts for what they truly are and not as they appear to be. This does not mean that the exterior world that physics studies is non-existent and merely a subjective presentation to the mind, but that it stands out to the human mind that tries to understand and interpret it as a mirage, hence an illusory aspect of our thoughts, a waking dream. The point to be made is that Maya plays a central role in man's evolution, and the stuff of dreams is as important to the physical life as it is to the Devashani. Maya is a Sanskrit term from ma, meaning not, and ya, meaning this. So it means not this, often interpreted as illusion. A similar experience of the illusory nature of matter is reported in the near-death experience of the British philosopher, mathematician, historian, writer, and Nobel laureate Bertrand Russell, who allegedly communicated after his death through the English medium Rosemary Brown. And he reported, "Now here I was, still the same. I, with capacities to think and observe, sharpened to an incredible degree. I felt earthly life suddenly seemed very unreal, almost as if it never happened. That matter is certainly illusory, although it does exist in actuality. The material world seemed now nothing more than a seething, changing, or restless sea of indeterminate density and volume. How could I have thought that that was reality? Yet it is completely understandable that the state in which a man exists, however temporary, constitutes the passing reality which is no longer reality when it has passed." Two chief points emerge. First, the last sentence from the above quotation about the relativity of reality is easily illustrated by the fact that a dream, a passing reality, is very real to the dreamer until he wakes up. Second, the heightened perceptions of Russell and Heisenberg make a complete nonsense of the materialistic dogma that a dying brain could only result in progressively jumbled perceptions leading to the eventual extinction of consciousness, as stated in no uncertain terms by the Oxford chemistry professor Peter Atkins, who suggests that science, this is his suggestion, listen, science, especially through psychology, shines its brilliant light on the afterlife and instead of illuminating it, causes it to shrink and die, revealing its core anxiety. A truthful statement suggested by the writer, Eddy, in keeping with the latest science would have been, quantum science shines its brilliant light on scientism, and instead of illuminating the primacy of matter, causes it to shrink and transmute into light, mind, and consciousness. Now here we're going to clarify some misunderstandings, some misapprehensions. A few commonly asked questions. Who enters Devashan? Having just outlined what consciousness is in Devashan, the next logical question is, who enters and inhabits Devashan, this heavenly place? It is best answered by asking who does not enter Devashan. Occultism teaches us that not all who physically die enter Devashan. For example, children who die young, usually before the age of 7, get reincarnated quickly, as they have not yet gathered the experiences that will reap a blissful condition in Devashan. So also, criminals who obviously have reaped practically no spiritual harvest in this life are therefore reborn swiftly. Later on, we will cover this in more detail. Other exceptions are some of those who die prematurely and who may be reborn immediately, those who commit suicide, and victims of murder or accident, as described by Ian Stevenson in several of his books that detail the investigation of children who claim to remember their previous incarnations. They can remember they're not that long ago, as well as many articles written by some of his associates. Other exceptions are advanced souls, the Bodhisattva, who enter Devashan and choose to be reincarnated quickly in order to serve humanity in physical life. At the highest level of advancement, there are initiates and adepts who have transcended the illusory veils of the mind and therefore have no need of Devashan. From the above, it may be correctly inferred that death is indeed a promotion in the classroom of life. Other than the few cases just cited, the vast majority of us, mankind, we are indeed promoted to the higher and purer life of Devashan, until such time as each soul is prompted by karmic law to commence a fresh chapter and thus incarnates to a new classroom in the stern school of life. Wow. Just wow. So powerful. Thank you for being here. Next week, we move on to the question of time and the question of immortality. That is next time on Unfolding Consciousness, Exploring the Living Universe and the Intelligent Powers in Nature and Humans. Synthesized, written, explained, collated by Dr. Eddie Villamoria. I cannot think of a more important subject or a more important text. Eddie holds nothing back. Normally, these teachings were only accessible in these dusty lodges and libraries. They were hidden. They were the mystery schools. There is nothing more important to do than get these out there. And remember, if you have any questions or comments, please leave them. Eddie will be here with us in the summer. He'll be sitting in this room or that room, and we'll be on with you together. Remember, you get the entire 4-volume set, the hardback set, which should be in every library, with a 20% discount. That is UC Book Study through the Shepard Walwyn website. And if you could, please like and subscribe. This is a very quiet book study. I would like everybody to be able to have access to these ancient teachings. It's not about selling the book, because Eddie has a full-time job. He designed the London Underground. He doesn't need the money. What this is service to humanity. And it costs money to print them and the color paper and all that stuff inside. That's all, okay? So this 4-volume set, 1,300 pages, can be in your library, but there are ebooks on the way. There are study and condensed versions on the way. An audiobook version is on the way. And we do these book studies absolutely free here every Sunday. And I look forward to seeing you next week. I love you very much. Thank you for being here.